As Mika finally made it to her quarters and exhaustively began taking off her uniform and getting ready for bed, the comfy embrace of her pillow was all too welcome to her. As she cradled herself in her comfy blankets, lying down for some much-needed rest, hoping to get a full night of sleep. Falling asleep came easy to her. However, staying asleep might have been another matter, as suddenly, in the middle of the night, seemingly for no reason at all, Mika shot out of bed, sitting up rapidly, gasping for breath, feeling her heart pound in her chest. She didn't know what was going on. Did she have a bad dream? What happened? Why did she wake up? She thought to herself, as she took some deep breaths, trying to calm her down, placing her hand against her forehead, as she still seemed to have somewhat of a headache. But as she brought her hand away from her head, she noticed something peculiar. Her hand, it wasn't the silver-like tone that it was before. Somehow, it had turned back to normal. Her regular pink complexion had fully restored itself. She stared at her hand in shock for a moment before jumping out of bed and running to the mirror of her bathroom, turning on the lights and staring into it to find her own natural reflection, the one that she always knew. Her long white hair, pink skin, and purple eyes, all were back, just as they had always been, before she underwent the procedure to change them. What was going on? She thought to herself, staring in the mirror. She turned on the water for a minute, beginning to splash her face. Perhaps she was just overworked, seeing things, or half asleep from staying up and working such long hours, trying to snap herself out of it with some cold water. But as she raised back up, the reflection did not change. Still, it was her, as she always was. But there was something new within the reflection. Mika stared at the mirror in shock for a moment, as behind her she could see a figure, but not just any figure. It was her, or rather, the version of her that she was pretending to be, the one she dubbed Captain Angelica, in order to pull off this little ruse of hers, simply standing behind her, smiling. Mika quickly turned around to face this specter, this doppelganger of herself in another form, to find that as she turned around, it was not merely an illusion. There she was, as clear as day. "Hello, Mika," she said, smiling, as without any warning at all, she lunged, grasping hold of Mika, grabbing her by the throat, her hand pressed against her head, as she forced her back into the mirror with great force, the glass shattering as she impacted, splinters running through it, as Captain Angelica forced her head against it, pressing into it as hard as she could. And in her eyes, Mika could see hatred and rage, a desire to kill, strong enough that she could feel it in her bones as she tried to strangle her. And just as fast as all of it began, Mika was suddenly startled, a large shaking as the world quaked around her, as if everything was falling apart, crumbling down to nothing. And just like that, Mika awoke, jostled awake as exovol shuddered, the sounds of explosions ringing across the hull. As alert sirens began to ring out, an announcement was broadcast into her quarters. "Captain to the bridge! Captain to the bridge! We are under attack!" the voice called out, as Mika was tossed out of bed by the shuddering, looking down to find her hands were as they were when she went to bed. They seemed just as they were supposed to be, the silverish tone of skin that her disguise had afforded her. What a nasty dream that was, Mika thought to herself, as with no time to delay, she rapidly began the process of getting dressed, struggling to put her clothes on, as dispersed impacts shook the ship left and right. Finally, after affixing the last of her attire and equipment, Mika broke out of her room in a great haste, rushing towards the bridge, passing through the corridors filled with clamoring crew members, rushing about in order to facilitate their jobs on board the ship, finally making her way to the bridge, passing through the electronic doors to find Dolus in the captain's chair. "Can't you take better evasive maneuvers?" Dolus shouted. "Hey, don't put this shit on me," Vermi replied. "Remember, in Mothership State, all of our other abilities are compromised. I don't have the maneuverability that I used to. I'm doing the best I can. We're just too slow like this," he called out. "Status report," Mika said, getting their attention as they all seemed to be busy. Dolus quickly removed himself from the captain's seat. "We're currently under fire, Captain," he called out as he made his way back to his station. "There are 2 attacking ships, a Tier 3 vessel and a Tier 2 vessel. They managed to sneak up on us as we were passing by the asteroid belt. The other 2 Tier 1 ships are helping back us up, but they don't have the firepower to deal with this. And in our current state, our own attack capabilities are far too limited," Dolus said as he began frantically typing into his controls. "Tactically, our situation is bad, Captain. We stand little chance of victory in this state. Our only option to win would be to abandon Mothership State and transfer back into our combat status. But in doing so, we would sacrifice the Darien device. No, we can't do that," Mika said as she took the captain's seat. "The entire war is hanging on that. We have to transfer it to the target location," she said as the ship shuddered once again, a few sparks flying in random locations. Nothing exceptionally serious, but it was a heavy hit. "Shield capacity down to 74%. Our shield strength is the only thing holding us together. But the Tier 1 ships are not faring so well. They're heavily outgunned," a crew member shouted out. "Orders, Captain." Mika tried her best to focus, shaking off the events from before, as she tried to focus on the here and now. The current situation seemed poor at best, with a Tier 3 ship and a Tier 2 ship, both in pursuit, and their Tier 1 ally ships taking heavy damage. The situation wasn't looking good, and most definitely wasn't in their favor. "Vermi, take us to light speed, as fast as you can get us there. Set destination to our target location." "Captain, if we do that, we're basically sending out a giant flare. This entire place is filled with enemy units. They'll all know where we're at and where we're going. I thought the point of this was to be secretive. They might not be able to pick up the weapons fire, but they will pick up a light speed signature. Sorry, Vermi, but secrecy just went out the window. The moment they attacked us with 2 ships, our edge of secrecy went bye-bye. They know where we are. Traveling slow won't help us anymore. and we don't have the firepower to fight them off at impulse while in mothership state. So, we have to book ass. But Captain, what about our Tier 1 ally ships? Aren't we just sort of leaving them high and dry? Vermi said. Don't worry about them. They'll cover us while we're trying to get away. That's their job after all. We are the precious cargo. With any luck, they can slow down the enemy before their ships are taken out of the fight. Hopefully they won't be destroyed, but their odds are better if we run away. By this point, the enemy units have no doubt noted that the Allied ships are protecting us, and that we seem to be carrying some sort of precious cargo. That means if we run, they'll come after us. They won't stick around to make sure that our Allied ships are destroyed. As soon as they're no longer able to fight, they'll give chase. They'll follow us. So in other words, the best way to help our Allied ships is to run like hell. So, give me light speed. And try to put some spunk on it, Mika shouted. Aye, aye, Captain, Vermi replied as he began entering the commands into the controls. And in a massive burst of blue light, while still under fire from enemy ships, exovol entered lightspeed travel. Target destination set. And now, everyone in the entire system knew exactly where they were. We're now at lightspeed, Captain. Now reaching maximum. Lightspeed 13. Is that really the best you can do? Mika replied. Sorry, Captain. Maintaining the expanded shields and the stasis field for the Darien device is consuming way too much energy. Lightspeed 13 is the best I got, without destabilizing the stasis field in the shields. Lucky enough, as of yet, they don't seem to be giving chase. I think our allies are still holding them up. According to calculations, we'll meet target destination in just under an hour. That is, if we can make it that long, Vermi said, staring out of the front view screen to see space whirling by as they rushed towards their target destination in an exceptionally dangerous situation.